Well, let's give it a couple of minutes as people join in. We'll start in about 5 minutes or so.
Okay. 5 minutes? Okay. I'll sit down for a few seconds. I like to do it standing up, keeps me energized, but just going to relax a bit now.
And we always have people joining in around like the first few minutes. So as people are joining in, let's be patient a little bit.
Right.
Thanks for your patience, everybody. We'll just be joining in, starting in a couple of minutes. We just making sure everybody's admitted to the webinar. So thanks for your patience. So it's a couple of minutes over 12 Eastern now. So I guess we can get started. We have a full agenda today. So let's get started. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar session hosted jointly by the Okta and KeyData Cyber teams. We have people joining from across all time zones. So good morning and good afternoon to you all. My name is Ankush Gupta. I'm a senior marketing manager here at Okta, and I will be moderating this webinar today. Let's look at the presenters on the next slide. For this webinar, we have Richard Gaumond, our Senior Solutions Engineer at Okta, and Anuj Marya, the Director of Delivery Services at KeyData Cyber, as the presenters. I'll turn it over to the both of you for a brief introduction.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Richard Gaumond. So as Ankush was saying, I'm a senior solution engineer at Okta. I've been with Okta for almost 4 years now. And today I will be your presenter with Ankush and Anuj from KeyData. Anuj?
Thanks, Richard. Hey, everybody. My name is Anuj Marya. I'm a delivery director at KeyData. I've been in the identity space over 20 years, and so done a lot of different implementations across different products, including Okta. So KeyData Cyber, we are a firm that specializes strictly in identity and access management. This includes pillars like IGA and privileged identity and identity governance, of course, which we'll be discussing today. We partner with leading vendors in the identity security space and have successfully delivered some of the most complex integrations in North America. So that's a bit about myself and about the company. Ankush, back to you.
All right. So before we look at the agenda, I just wanted to quickly chat about the raffle prize. We're giving away an Asobu cold brew kit that you see on screen as a special prize to one of the attendees. So make sure to scan the QR code that you will see on screen at the end of the presentation to enter the raffle draw. All right, let's look at the agenda. We will start out with Richard walking us through a brief overview of the identity governance topic and giving us a product demo. Then Anuj will share his experience of working with Okta. We'll also look at some keynotes around the benefits of unifying IAM and governance. And finally, we'll wrap up with a Q&A. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A button within the Zoom window, and we can take all those questions towards the end. Well, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Richard to take it from here.
So, hi everyone again. So before we dive in, just a quick note. Today's presentation may include forward-looking statement about future product capabilities, features, or functionality. So please only make purchasing decision based on what's available in the product today. Let's start with some number and stat about the current state of security in the world. So I'm going to show those stats one by one. I'm going to give you a chance to maybe pop up some numbers in your head, just kind of fun little quiz. Those will be potentially surprising. So the percentage of all data breach that stem from attacks on identity. Give you a second or two. All right. Over 80%. Actually, I saw some number going up to 86%. What that tells us is clearly that identity is the #1 vector for attack today. The number of session cookies that were stolen from Fortune 1000 employees in 2023. Okay. The thing with session cookies is that once you have a session cookie, you can bypass identity. It's one of the favorite targets now for attackers, right? And those numbers I'm going to talk about are 2023. So it's almost 2 billion. I'm not saying million, I'm saying billion number of cookies. And that's 2 years ago. I can imagine, I don't have the number, sorry, but you can imagine that it's much, much higher today. Now, once somebody breached in, what's the average time in days to recognize that you were breached, okay, and contain that breach in days? That one is surprising to a lot of people when I present this slide. Almost 10 months. You can imagine in 10 months how much an attacker could do damage within your organization. So we need to think of protecting against this. And finally, the percentage of increase in attack from last year to this year. Almost double, 180%. So you can see that the problem is really not getting easier, okay? And you can see also identity is source of this issue. So identity is foundational, the foundational technology to address these issues as well. Protect identity, you protect against these. Yet, today many organizations still treat identity as an IT or compliance function, rather than treating it as a security layer. Business today is fragmented. The way we work has changed quite a bit, right? Since COVID, even more, right? The number of identities exploded. You have like employees, PAM user, privileged user, contractor, partners, customers, and non-human identities. Non-human identities, service account, but this is going to be like a can of worms this year, because you have all these AI agent that will create account by themselves. So you have to take, notice of this. Multiply this with SaaS adoption, cloud adoption, and also remote work. I want to work from home. I want to work from the airport, my phone, my tablet, my laptop. So all this, makes security much more complex. The idea of having a single simple stack, that doesn't exist anymore. Your organization will rely on hundreds of apps and infrastructure services. Latest number we had amongst our customer was an average 100 apps. Okay, that's an average. So some have a lot more, some have a little bit less. And often they each have their own identity layer. So this fragmentation will definitely expand your attack surface. And identity is the #1 target. So when we think about threat, we forget that insider threats are the most difficult to identify since they already pass the security buyer. Okay, insider threats such as overprivileged account, abandoned account, bots, you open services without MFA. All these expose identity as a weak link. An attacker, they don't really need to steal password anymore, right? They can, as I mentioned, they can hijack your session token. They will exploit, probably using AI now, it's much easier, exploit misconfiguration. And once they're in, they will move laterally within your organization without being detected for maybe 290 days, okay? So we definitely need to shift our thinking, right? Identity we used to have like a narrow view of identity, right? We can access, write permission, compliance check, but attacks are, dynamic now. So the static view is no longer, valuable, right? You need to think dynamically. So in short, security, identity is a security tool. You need to think of it this way. So let's start with where most organizations are today, okay? You get access is everywhere across disconnected system. You have different admins, role, inconsistent processes. Too many users still have standing privilege that linger far longer than they should. And governance, well, it's often, comes after the fact, right? Layered on after provisioning, after approval, something we think after a breach. And certification, well, most of the time they're manual, backward looking, painful to complete. Okay. And these silos will create blind spots. And this is where the risk, just will build up, right? Identity has become, as I mentioned, the primary attack surface. We really need to start rethinking about how we solve this. So governance is not just to be considered as a compliance issue. It's a fundamental security priority. It should be. And to solve for that, you need a solution that can take a more proactive approach to governance. So if we look at IGA today, we have legacy IGA and modern IGA. So legacy IGA has been more reactive. It's been there for a while. It's designed to pass audit mainly, not really prevent incident. It's slow to adapt, hard to manage, and leaves a lot of decision up to tribal knowledge. You give the same access as employee A to employee B without, using an outdated roadmap, sorry. So modern identity threats require us to shift from a reactive cleanup to a proactive control. So that means embedding governance directly into access, lifecycle, and identity flow. And that is what Okta Identity Governance, OIG for short, was built for. So instead of layering governance after provisioning, we embedded directly into the identity flow. So Okta OIG, Okta Identity Governance, combines that no-code automation from our workflows tool and a broad set of governance capability. Okay, we include lifecycle management, access requests, access certification, enforcing zero standing privilege, which is critical, and coarse grain or fine grain entitlement management. So during the demo, we'll look at 3 components to improving visibility and control with identity. We want to centralize users and application, so use a single control system to manage all users and application. For example, adding, removing user access via like a unified interface. We want to leverage authentication data for automation. Basically take advantage of your identity system authentication data to automate tasks. This is data you have, use it. For example, identifying and monitoring inactive user on a regular basis. And finally, we want to be able to take informed action, okay, such as removing unnecessary accesses. You want to offer self-service options for access requests. You don't want to impact, operation, and you want to handle inactive users. Before we go into the demo, let's briefly talk about our workflows, right? Workflows engine. Workflow will play a key role throughout the demonstration. Workflow is a powerful no-code automation and orchestration tool. It leverages data and public APIs from your Okta or other apps. With our out-of-the-box pre-built connectors, you can easily integrate with the usual suspect like the Microsoft apps, the Google apps, Salesforce, and all the other ones. You can also integrate to pretty much anything that has a public API. Okay, you can receive messages from that API. You can push messages to that API. It's really flexible. So with workflow, we can automate action across all those apps and even more. Okay, it will allow you to tackle much more complex identity scenario. With that, we'll go to the demo. So we'll start with Sophie. Sophie is a new IT employee. She's a developer. She's been hired. She was instructed to, she received, a laptop, a device managed by the company. She was instructed to register into Okta Verify. Okta Verify is our authenticator. It's free. Okay, it can be installed on Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, soon to be Linux as well. Let's think of it as an in-between between a standard Microsoft Google Authenticator and an EDR. Basically, it's device bound. It can read data from the device. It allows you to do passwordless and also phishing resistant. When we talk about session cookie, this is where phishing resistant will protect you from that. So Sophie comes in. She's installed it. She's installed Okta Verify, and she's going to sign in. So first thing, she doesn't need a password. Okta Verify will say, give me your biometric. So with biometric, of course, the level of assurance is a step up, right? There's three level of assurance. This is the high assurance. So no password to remember. Simply put my biometrics. Could be Face ID. In my case, it's fingerprint. I'm using my laptop, my Okta laptop. And then Sophie gets into a dashboard. So this is a dashboard that's provided by Okta. It will give a singular approach, a singular view of all your application that's been integrated to Okta, but you don't have to go through this to access the application. You can access the application directly. Okay. So first, Sophie comes in and she has what we call birthright application. So we have to think as zero trust or least privilege standing here. So based on attributes that will be fetched from different sources, maybe, or from the HR system, sorry, we can tell the system which attributes that at this moment for her position, Sophie has access to. Okay, you want to limit this as little as possible. Okay. So also, it provides you with single sign-on on certain applications. For example, she's been automatically registered into Office 365. I click Office. This is, single log-on. I have just single sign-on. I just click on it, and I'm into Word automatically. But you can also do step-up MFA because we have that flexibility in the Okta. Some application you want to revalidate our identity. For example, if I go to confidential here, Okta is going to ask me to revalidate. So we have that flexibility with Okta. So I'm going to revalidate myself with biometrics. Of course, this is highly confidential and I have access to the application. Now, in real life, when you provide least privileged access, sometimes you will have to have access to other applications and you don't want to impact operations. So you want to get self-service access. So it's very simple with Okta. So Sophie, for some reason, this is a demo obviously, has to help with a marketing event. So she needs to access a certain application called marketing. So she goes into the request access and will request marketing. And then at this point, she has to decide what part of marketing. So there's two levels. There's fine grain and coarse grain. Marketing is an application you have access or you don't. It's coarse grain application. So default application access. And then you need to provide information to the approver. And this is all configurable in Okta, right? I made it simple for the demo, of course, but you can see you have lists, you have dates, you have time, you can put all these kind of information for the approver to make the right decision. Information is power in this case. So this is simply a demo. So it's a demo. I'm going to submit the request. Now, automatically, our manager, which is Steve Riggs, will receive that notification. One thing we did with Okta is we allow notification to be to a chatbot. Also, always to facilitate, facilitate operation. So Steve goes into his chatbot. In our case, it's Slack. In your case, might be Teams. And I can see a message from Okta saying, Sophie Denis has requested marketing. Okay, what's the answer to the question? Demo, of course. And then I approve right there on the spot. Or I can go through the interface, the Okta interface. I'm going to approve because this is time critical. Approve. I'm going to go back to Sophie. Sophie will go to her apps. And Sophie now has access to marketing. Okay. Now Sophie's moving to DevOps. She's got a promotion or change of role within the company. So automatically the system, the HR system or other system, again, we can take source information from multiple systems, will change her role within the company right through. So I'm going to mimic this from my system here. I'm going to run a workflow to do this. I got a script. Just give me a sec here. It's running. All right. So we'll look at Sophie. She has access to Google Workspace, and we see that she has access to, well, these are Office documents. So I'm going to refresh. Sophie, as you can see, no longer has access to Google, okay, but she has access to Salesforce. So you see, automatically we change the access of Sophie based on information. This is least privilege access for a new role. You also see that market is gone. So you can manage all this granularity within Okta. Now Sophie's leaving. For some reason, she leaves the company. We'll deactivate Sophie. I'm going to run the deactivation. Here we go. And if I try to access or refresh my page, I'm expired. Now she's been deactivated from all the application with Okta, and she cannot log in anymore. If I go next, it's going to ask me for password, and even if I enter the password, it's not going to work because she's deactivated with Okta. Good. So I will leave Sophie for now. Now we'll go and see another employee, Julien. I want to demonstrate now a more granular, like a more, we have coarse grain, we have fine grain entitlement. So as I showed before, Marketing was coarse grain. I have access to Marketing altogether. I have an application in DevOps, which is the IT Ops system. IT Ops system, it's an advanced, it's a demo application I created. So it's an advanced application that allows you to get some entitlement for DevOps and entitlement for Dev. Okay. So if I look at my application, you could see that I'm DevOps engineer, I get access permission, those are entitlement. But, comes that up, Julien used to be a developer, he has some work to finish. Okay, so he wants to have access to the other part of the application. I'm going to request it. I'm going to go to IT Up System. Now I have entitlement. I have a developer bundle. But here I get like a message because we don't want to give DevOps and IT both developer and DevOps, right? Both the same rights because you have here a conflict, a separation of duty conflict. So Julien sees it right away, but he still needs it. Obviously, I could provide more detail on why he needs it. I want to make it short. I want to make demo. I'm going to submit the request. Now for this particular demo, Steve is also Julien's boss. Now Steve received this message. Julien wants this. This is SOD conflict detail. I want to see what this is about. I don't want to just sign it up. So now by clicking on it, we will open the interface in Okta, and you will see right away, the SOD conflict details. So I'm okay with this. So I'm going to approve. Sorry, since my page is but because separation of duty, I put a rule that compliance need to sign off on it. They need to approve. So Diane LeBlanc, she's a compliance. She's going to sign off on it. So I'm approved. Approve from Diane now is required. So I'm going to go to Diane. Same thing with Diane. She received a message from Okta directly. Julien Roy wants this. And I could see the SOD conflicts because it's the same. I'm going to open my interface and I can approve. So I'm going to approve. Approve or deny. And approve. Here you go. So let's go back to my friend Julien. Go back to my apps. And if I go back to my system here, as you can see now, I got develop engineer, what I had before, and I have software dev as well as entitlement. Okay. So now let's go and look at certification. Okay. So access certification, this is the admin certification view within the admin console. I didn't put in campaign because I want to show on Okta. With Okta, you can build a campaign really easily, really fast. It's a 5-step, really. You will have some pre-configured campaign that's going to come with the application. After 30 days, you'll see an active user campaign that you can simply trigger. But let's create a campaign. We have two types of campaign. We can click create source campaign, so campaign based on application or specific group, or user campaign. User campaign could be, I want to give a campaign for all employees of that manager, for example, a certain manager. I'm going to do a resource campaign. So I'm going to put the resource name. I've done it before, obviously. IT dev app, let's say. You could put a description, you put a start date, obviously. You could put a duration, you can change, you can make it recurrent. So I can make it repeat. For example, if you want an active user, I would repeat it every month, right? To see who didn't sign in for 30 days, for example. And you could make it like continuously, or you can have a end date. So I'm just going to put that recurrent. I'm just going to go next. Now I'm going to select the resource. In my case, it's the IT dev apps. So ops system, okay? So now I can review entitlement. This one has entitlement, but I'm going to take just all entitlement. That would be fine. So I'm going to go next. As you can see, it's really, really fast. Now select the user. It could be all users. This is what I'm going to use. It could be predefined user scope, but you can also use Okta expression language that allows you to read any attributes of the user, even custom attributes, right? So I'm going to use all user, and I can exclude user from campaign if I wanted to. I'm going to do that. Now you have the reviewer. So it could be a specific reviewer, it could be the manager, it could be a group of reviewer, and so on, a custom reviewer, etc. You can have multiple levels, as you can see here. Could add level, like I demonstrated for DSOD. I'm going to go simple. I'm going to do manager. I'm going to go a fallback in case that employee doesn't have manager defined. I'm going to use the admin in this case, myself. I could disable self-review, that's fine. Then I could add a level. Now there's a series of notification you could provide. Notification when it's assigned, pending, etc. So you can really, have follow-up email. You can customize that email, and you could select some additional setting. These are when you want force, granular certification. For example, I want you when you approve. To give me justification or reject, whatever. When you make a decision, give me a justification. I can force it, right? The system doesn't force it by default. I want a disabled bulk decision. I don't want you to select all your employee and say, okay, without, reviewing things properly. And disable reassignment if I don't want you to reassign. So I'm just going to leave it as is. And then what do I do when this campaign is completed? So if there's a revoke access, what do I do? Typically is you want to remove access from users, right? If the reviewer doesn't respond, what do? Do we revoke access or don't take any action? Don't take any action here doesn't mean that you don't take any action from the workflow, because this is going to trigger, you can trigger workflows from the campaign ending and take action on those that has not responded, for example. So I'm just going to schedule that campaign. Campaign schedule, I'm just going to start it just to see, launch it, launch. Now I'm going to go deactive, which is, so again, certification, admin view. I can see all user targeted for this campaign. If I click a user, I have, information that help me make the right decision. In this case, it's to reassign. All this information is from the system. This is a sample. You can change, you can create custom attribute to be displayed there as well. Certain number, etc. Whatever you need, information is key in there. You want to have the right information to make the right decision. Okay. So this is again the admin view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just let me see. I'm going to see as a approver. I'm going to use my admin as an approver. I'm going to go to my certification, Okta certification. I have a message. I have this pending review, and I have only one employee. Okay, this is pretty good, not the right example, but I can go to maybe Steve. Let me go to Steve. That's going to be a better example. Sorry about that. Steve, certification. I have 2 employee pending. So Steve has the capability of selecting all, approve all, revoke all, reassign all, because I gave him that opportunity within the system, but I can revoke this, forcing him to look at them individually. Looking at Valentina, again, information is key. I have all the information I need to make the right decision. Do I revoke? Do I reassign to somebody that knows better about this? Maybe another layer down as the hierarchy of management, or do I revoke or approve? So that is certification. Finally, let's look at reports. So Okta will provide you an extensive report based on certification, access, entitlement. The typical report that we want to see is, in entitlement and access, we have user app access. User entitlement is one that's been, very useful for compliance and audit. Separation of duty. We have also information about past campaign, detail, and past campaign summary. Each of these reports, if I click user entitlement, can be filtered. So basically, I have a list of these entitlements. I can export this to a CSV export for, let's say, join into a compliance memo or compliance email. And I can edit the filter. For example, I'm going to say application. I want the IT up system application so only. I'm going to click apply. And then I have my list of application. Okay. So let's go back to our presentation. So basically, I took what I presented before, those 3 components. First step, these are the user experience I followed. First step was to provide the least privileged access, for journal remover, including provisioning, deprovisioning. When Sophie got promoted, she got like provision to some application, deprovision to some application. We showed strict authorization process to access, other apps. And we automated the termination and deprovisioning. Okay, this demonstrated a tight management of licenses with a low impact to operation. Then we looked at creating campaign. We handle user access to some application, and we created a campaign in 5 steps and within a few minutes for recurrent access review. So finally, everything we talked about and demonstrated today is possible with Okta Identity Governance and its component, access governance, workflows, and lifecycle management. So that's it for me for governance and SaaS, for governance demonstration. I hope you find that information useful. Now I will, I would like to hand it up to Anuj, who will share KeyData customer success with Okta Governance. Anuj?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. That was great. So wanted to talk about one of the success stories that we had with Okta Identity Governance. And so this one is with one of our manufacturing clients that needed to transition away from their existing IAM platform to Okta. And as part of that transition, they wanted to also mature their IGA practice. The existing platform that they had was very limited. It provided some basic capabilities. So, in their platform, they were using Workday for their HR system. So we were, their existing setup, they were able to support the onboarding, typical onboarding, offboarding, crossboarding scenarios. But they had challenges. They weren't able to support something more advanced. And I'll give you an example. So things like immediate terminations that would be initiated, everything was done manually in nature. Their accounts would be disabled in Active Directory or Entra, and then things would be done after the fact. But they didn't have a way of everything being initiated from HR. So they had challenges. They also lacked support in terms of how do you kind of do these things like access requests, like Richard was showing. In their current environment, the ITSM tool was ServiceNow. So everything was done manual. So anybody that needed access, they would submit a form in ServiceNow, and the service desk team would get that form and they would reach out to the approvers. Once they got the approvals, they would go manually and set up the access. Similarly, there was no view for any managers or application owners to be able to review who had access to the different resources. And one of the big problems that they had was when people changed roles or they left the organization, the access stayed behind, and a lot of systems that were still consuming their licenses because proper deprovisioning didn't happen. So the accounts were getting disabled, but they didn't have workflows or capabilities into other systems to disable their accounts. So a lot of issues that they had. So as part of this effort to move away to a new platform, they wanted to help tackle these as well. So the beauty about Okta is a single product where you can do everything from an access management perspective as well as IGA. So you don't need two separate tools. And we're not going to talk about access management today, but as part of this, they had over, I'd say about 40 to 50 different apps that needed to be onboarded, integrated with Okta to support single sign-on and authentication. They had custom MFA policies, and so we were able to bring all of that in. So let's shift the focus to IGA side. So for IGA, I mean, we started off in terms of doing some basic integration. So similar to how they had integrated with Workday. So we set up those integrations in. We used workflows in Okta, which were very powerful because it allows you to do things that are not offered just out of the box. So I'll give you an example. We have all run into issues where we don't have a clean process to remove accounts or clean up accounts after the fact. So many times people leave or people change roles, and we see accounts are left behind. There are times they're even active. So we need a process to clean up that. So one of the things we did was we built out a workflow to say, whatever the duration is, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, we'll take the according task to disable the account, deactivate it in all the different target systems so that we have a process to, from a governance compliance perspective, we have removed all the access and, we're not going over licenses. Another thing was when people were changing managers, right? So new managers are coming in, there wasn't really a way for them to kind of manage that out of the box. So we helped build a workflow to support manager changes. So let's kind of flow that through across all systems, including Active Directory, and allow for that to be pushed. So what we did was we built out these basic capabilities, and then we took the next step. Once we had everything working, we took the next step of enhancing their platform. And the way we did this was obviously, you start off with the current lifecycle management flows that are there, improve on them. How do you support immediate onboarding? So they had an issue where Service Desk was creating accounts in Active Directory first many times because the HR process was a bit slow and the accounts was getting created. Then the HR profile was ready. And as you're trying to sync the accounts, you run into conflicts. And so we worked to enable more HR-driven flows. We allowed for temporary accounts to be created even while the HR process was not fully complete. So that allowed for that workflow to continue, and there's no manual effort needed. So when the full process was completed, we could update the status on the account. Similarly, for immediate offboarding, we built in a tighter integration with Workday to allow for those signals to come across directly to Okta as soon as a termination request started, instead of, again, doing tasks manually in the target systems and then having to sync accounts and flow them. And so once we tackled these common processes and common problems, then we went into maturing the platform. And we started with, and what Richard showed really well, where, we need to know who has access to what today. So looking at access reviews or certification campaigns to say, okay, these are the applications, let's build a process in. We started with pilot applications to say, the owners should be able to go in and verify whether these people need access or not. So it was pretty easy to do, as Richard already shown. So once we knew who should have access, who doesn't, that helped clean up some of the accesses that was no longer needed. So then that was, it's still in progress of being rolled out now, over scale. Second thing we did was improve a process for access requests. So today they use ServiceNow, and Richard showed you one way where within Okta, you can build out the access request forms and somebody can request access. But in their case, they wanted to continue using ServiceNow as a way to provide that front end for all their users. So people could submit tickets or submit access requests directly in it. And they didn't want them to necessarily go to another portal to request access. So, and another flexibility of Okta is Okta does have this capability with ServiceNow. So within ServiceNow Forms, you can actually install an application that has an API integration with Okta. So you can build out your forms, and in the backend, you can initiate those API calls and allow for those forms, once they're approved within ServiceNow and based on what the access would be, API calls could be initiated, and that access is given automatically. So we help bridge that through that kind of a model. And then the last thing I would say, we had scenarios where cross-boarding was a big one, where people are changing roles, or people are today are a contractor. But then they're becoming a full-time employee. And this is probably a common scenario, or it could be vice versa. And when that happens, many times it's not a clean way of potentially keeping that same account or same level of access. So the current processes were to actually create a net new account, remove the old account, but that, as you know, is very manual in nature. So we help bridge that gap by, again, having a tighter integration with Workday, using identifiers that were immutable. And so even if the accounts were changing, we didn't have to do any manual processes after the fact. And the last thing I will talk about is role-based. So that's usually comes later, because once you've kind of done these basic things within the IGA landscape, that's when you want to really look at the person who has the right role, as Richard was saying. What accesses should they have? And it's not just the role title, not just the title, but the department. There's a number of factors that kind of help define what access they should have, and take it one step further and have entitlement. So you want to follow the model of least privilege access, because you don't want to give anybody access more than they really need. So this part is the biggest amount of work, because to help build those definitions out takes a lot of time. So again, as part of that piloting out for just a couple of applications, we help build out for particular roles, what are the accesses that they need. So from the time that the account is onboarded into Workday, they should have seamless access to what they need when they start on day one. And you don't necessarily want to be cloning accounts, so you want to have a proper way of giving accesses to people that need it, and not more than they need it. So we help build out that as well, and Okta allows a pretty easy way to support for that. So that's been the last activity, and some of that work is still ongoing. But just wanted to kind of walk the group here through the journey that we have had. One great thing is, from the beginning till end, for the initial transition to the new platform and build in some of the basic capabilities and some maturity within the IGA, they had a hard deadline of 3 months, and we were able to accomplish that. So it just goes to show the maturity of the Okta IGA product and how quickly you can easily support it. And like I said, the benefit was a single platform. We were able to support everything from authentication, MFA, even adaptive MFA that we needed to enable, along with the IGA capabilities. So that's a bit of a walkthrough of the case study that I wanted to share. Is there time permitting, Ankush? I can maybe even just walk through on the next slide. A lot of us are visual people, and so I thought maybe it might be worthwhile for us to just look at an architectural view for this particular client on how Okta fit in. So you can see Okta was providing both access management and IGA capabilities here. The credential store is Active Directory, And then on the left side, you have the authoritative sources. So Workday is the main HR platform. So we integrated with that to support all the lifecycle management capabilities. They had ServiceNow, which is their ITSM tool, and we integrated with ServiceNow through a backend API integration to support all types of access requests. We built out access reviews or campaigns, and we allowed or enabled managers to be able to come directly into Okta and be able to manage those campaigns and approve them, as Richard was showing. And on the right-hand side, that's more on the access management, where we supported all types of authentication patterns with their modern or even legacy applications that they have. So I just wanted to give a view onto the overall setup that we had. And like I said, the time to completion was fairly quick, and we were able to accomplish it. So that's a bit about the case study. And Ankush, maybe I'll pass it back to you.
Richard, go
I
for it.
guess, yeah, that's
Richard.
for me. So it's interesting, Anush, what you're saying, because I've been, faced with this dilemma from some of our customers. They say, like, for example, I have like hundreds of forms that were built in ServiceNow, right? I just don't want to go from that and build all this within Okta. And the beautiful thing with workflows and the API is that you don't have to. Basically, we could use those forms, get that information, either using the API within the form, like you were mentioning, or simply the API calling the workflow, fetching that information and initiate the governance flow, right? And that way you can slowly move out of using those complex form and that complex service and get everything within a unified platform. So we've shown you how Okta can protect you at login with governance, but I was just mentioning unified approach. We extend across all the identity fabric, right? It starts by designing a secure authentications with phishing resistant factors, which with the session cookie being stolen is really required nowadays. Least privilege action, like I demonstrated. And for each unique access event, you need to be context aware, okay? But then you layer in our posture management tool, ISPM, Identity Security Posture Management. It gives you a complete end-to-end visibility into your most critical security risk. Sorry, I forgot to click these different buttons there. So with ISPM, you can uncover misconfiguration, orphan accounts, and I've been presenting that tool, not me personally, but I've seen presentation. It's amazing what you can find. SSO exception, MFA bypass, and other identity security risk. You also need to continuously monitor for threat signal across the tech ecosystem. Okay, you need to detect and neutralize identity attack in real time. Okay, so you need to have a system that provides, continuous reinforce throughout the identity cycle, access governance, zero standing privilege control, and that across the entire, tech stack. And all these drive an end-to-end identity outcome. So I want to wrap things up, okay? Okta unifies identity security across the spectrum of your posture, access, governance, privileged access, and detection and response after the login. So all this in order to centralize and tightly integrate every aspect of identity. So each of these use cases, like discover, determine, enforce, detect, and response, they're critical to an organization identity security. And while each of these, require a focus, right? Each of these could be separate as focus. If you put them collectively, okay, this is required to meet today's security needs. So that's it from me. Hopefully this was useful information again. Thank you very much to all of you who joined us. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ankush.
Well, that was a very informative session. Thank you, Richard and Anuj. We've reached the end of this presentation, and as promised, on your screen, you will see a QR code. Please scan the QR code using a mobile camera, and you'll be prompted to fill out a form to enter the raffle. So go right ahead and submit your info while we answer any questions here. Okay, looks like we have a couple of questions here,
Sure.
Richard. So first question is, can we determine applications which can be requested according to the department?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So the way you could simply the way Okta works, okay? So we use attributes. So we can take attributes, as I mentioned, from many different sources. We can manipulate those attributes, create new attributes, and based on the attribute, we typically create groups, okay? Groups of the same privilege. A user could have multiple groups, obviously, and using those groups, you will be able to define which application a user can access requests to. I hope that answered your question.
Got it. There's another question. Can we write custom connectors if the target app does not support standard protocols?
I'm not sure I understand I think we take that offline. It's much deep detailed tech dive into it. I would say I would think yes, obviously, but I need to understand exactly where you're coming from. Sorry about that. Well, we can take that offline.
Yes. Another one, how does reconciliation work? For example, if some admin changes AD groups of a user, how do we handle this?
Well, it's really provisioning and deprovisioning, and we have this connection with AD as well. So if a change in AD will reflect into Okta, and based on that change, the user will have access to different apps. So basically, any change, either group or attributes that we map into Okta from AD, and this is a very usual integration. I say most of our customer have AD, most of our customer have Microsoft apps, and this is one of the most common integration we have. So we synchronize between AD and Okta, and again using groups and some rules, we can define what can access, who can access what, who can request what.
Got
Yeah, and I'll just add something to that one. Is with AD, as Richard mentioned, once they're set up for synchronizing, you can have the AD agent pushed out and you can pull the information. Nested groups always become a bit of a challenge as well, right? So within Okta, all the groups are flat. Right? So you don't necessarily have the concept of group A is a member of group B. So everything is flattened in Okta. But membership, as long as you have the right memberships in the AD side and as they're changing and you have the reconciliation or synchronization in place, that's what still get updated on the Okta
Yeah.
end. It's just we don't have that nested group kind of a concept.
So
Thank
one
you.
last question that we have for both of you, Anuj and Richard, I guess. Can I use Okta Identity Governance in a hybrid environment with on-prem apps?
Yes, yes, absolutely. We just came up with on-prem agent, right? So we support cloud, obviously, and on-prem environment. Right now, including system like SAP NetWeaver, Oracle EBS, and generic database, JDBC, ODBC database. So our prem connector makes it easy to extend governments, to this environment without, the need of a separate tool to manage this. So you can enforce, use the same policies, approve, etc., across your SaaS application as well as your on-prem system. Okay, so everything is to keep everything within the same ecosystem, so you can read the logs and take action from within those logs using workflows, using other modules of Okta, and keep it all really concise and be able to protect your organization properly.
Thank you, Richard. Looks like one more question sneaked in. It's about the roadmap. Is there any roadmap for improving the Okta workflows, adding new cards? For example, there's no count card and we have to use list and length right now.
Adding new, sorry, repeat the question. I don't see it, sorry. Can you?
Uh, is there any roadmap for improving the Okta workflows, adding new cards?
Yes, absolutely. I don't have, well, we have quite a bit of cards right now. Obviously, with Okta, we're completely moving. I think in the ecosystem of identity, we're the company that it evolves or invests the most. So obviously, workflow is a huge important tool of our unified approach, and we keep on developing. So you'll see definitely new cards coming in on a regular basis.
Okay, looks like we have no other questions. Let's give it a couple of minutes to see if anybody else has any question. Otherwise, we can wrap up a little early and give people 5 minutes back. Okay. Looks like no other questions from the attendees here, so we can wrap up early. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Anuj, and thank you everybody for joining
Such
the
pleasure.
webinar
Thank
today.
you.
And have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.